The dining room was silent, save for the faint ticking of the old grandfather clock in the corner. I sat at the edge of my worn armchair, hands folded tightly in my lap, staring at the empty table before me. The scent of rosemary and roasted chicken lingered in the air, a ghost of dinners past, when laughter and warmth filled this house. Tonight, though, the table was barring no plates, no clinking glasses, no family. Just me, Evelyn, 68 years old, alone in a home that once held so much life. It wasn't supposed to be this way. Tonight was meant to be special. My son, Michael, had invited us, me and my husband, Richard, for a family dinner at his house across town. His wife, Clara, had planned it meticulously, as she always did. She was the kind of woman who made everything look effortless, the perfect hostess, the perfect mother to my grandson, Tommy, the perfect wife. But perfection, I'd learned, often hides sharp edges. The call came 2 hours ago. Clara's voice was polite but cold, like a winter breeze slipping through a cracked window. Evelyn, I'm sorry, but we've decided it's best if you don't come tonight. It's complicated. Michael will explain later. No warmth, no explanation, just those words that cut deeper than any knife. I pressed the phone to my ear, my heart sinking, searching for a reason. Had I said something wrong? Done something to offend her? I'd always tried to be kind, to bridge the gap between us. But Clara had built walls I couldn't climb. I glanced at the clock again. Richard was still upstairs, getting ready. He didn't know yet. How could I tell him? Tonight was the night he'd planned to tell Michael and Clara about our divorce. After 42 years of marriage, we'd grown apart, our love eroded by years of quiet resentment and unspoken truths. Richard had insisted we tell the family together, to face the fallout as a unit. But now, I was banned from the dinner, and the weight of that rejection pressed against my chest. I stood, smoothing my dress, and walked to the kitchen. The counters were spotless, the dishes put away, but my hands needed something to do. I filled the kettle, the familiar routine grounding me. As the water began to hum, I thought of Michael, my boy. He was 35 now, a man with a family of his own. But to me, he'd always be the child who clung to my hand during thunderstorms, his small fingers wrapped tightly around mine. Clara had changed him, though. Not in a bad way. Not entirely. But he was different, distant, caught in her orbit. The kettle whistled, and I poured the water into a chipped mug, the one Michael had made for me in pottery class when he was 12. World's best mom. It read, the letters uneven but earnest. I traced them with my finger, a lump rising in my throat. Did he still think that? Or had Clara's disapproval seeped into him, too? I heard Richard's footsteps on the stairs, heavy and deliberate. He appeared in the doorway, his suit jacket slung over his shoulder, his gray hair neatly combed. At 70, he still carried himself with the confidence of a younger man, but his eyes held a weariness I knew too well. You ready, Evelyn? He asked, his voice gruff but not unkind. I set the mug down, my hands trembling. Richard, I can't go. Clara called. She doesn't want me there tonight. His brow furrowed, and for a moment, I saw the old Richard, the one who'd defend me, who'd stand by my side. What do you mean? She doesn't want you there. It's a family dinner. Your family. I shook my head, the words catching in my throat. She didn't say why, just that it's complicated. Richard's jaw tightened. and he tossed his jacket onto the couch. That's nonsense. I'll call Michael right now. No, I said quickly, my voice sharper than I intended. Don't. Let's just let it be. For tonight. He stared at me, his eyes searching mine, and I knew he saw the hurt I was trying to hide. But he didn't push. That was Richard now always stepping back, letting things be. It was part of why we drifted so far apart. Fine, he said at last, his voice flat. But we're still telling them about the divorce. Tomorrow. Then. We'll do it together. I nodded, though I wasn't sure I believed it. Together. When was the last time we'd truly been together? As Richard retreated upstairs, I sank back into the armchair, the mug of tea forgotten. The clock ticked on, each second a reminder of the dinner I wasn't welcome at, the family I was losing, and the marriage that was already gone. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in years, I let myself cry not for Richard, not for Clara, but for the pieces of my life that were slipping away, one silent night at a time. The next morning, the house felt emptier than usual. Sunlight filtered through the lace curtains, casting delicate shadows on the hardwood floor, but it did little to lift the heaviness in my chest. I hadn't slept much, my mind replaying Clara's words, searching for a clue I might have missed. Richard was already gone when I woke, leaving a note on the kitchen counter, at the office. Talk later. No mention of last night. No mention of the divorce. Just like him to avoid the hard conversations. I busied myself with small tasks, watering the plants, folding laundry, anything to keep my hands moving and my thoughts at bay. But by noon, I couldn't stand the silence anymore. I needed to know why Clara had shut me out. I grabbed my purse and drove to Michael's house, my heart pounding with a mix of determination and dread. Their home was a charming two-story with a neatly trimmed lawn and a red door that always seemed to welcome visitors. But today, it felt like a fortress. I parked across the street, hesitating. What if Clara answered? What if she turned me away again? I took a deep breath and walked to the door, my knuckles rapping lightly against the wood. Michael opened it, his face lighting up for a brief moment before concern clouded his eyes. Mom, what are you doing here? I need to talk to you, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. About last night. He glanced over his shoulder, then stepped outside, closing the door behind him. Clara's inside with Tommy, he said quietly. Let's sit out here. We settled on the porch swing, the chains creaking softly under our weight. Michael looked tired, his dark hair mussed, his shoulders slumped. He was still my boy, but the lines on his face told a story of stress I hadn't noticed before. Mom, I'm sorry about last night, he began, his voice low. Clara, she didn't mean to hurt you. It's just been tense around here. Tense, I echoed, my hands tightening in my lap. Michael, she banned me from dinner. Your own mother. I deserve to know why. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's complicated. Clara's been under a lot of pressure. Work. Tommy. Everything. She thought it'd be easier if it was just Dad and me last night. Easier for who? I asked, my voice rising. For her. Or for you. Because it certainly wasn't easier for me, sitting alone at home while my family gathered without me. Michael's eyes dropped to the porch floor, and I saw the guilt there, raw and unhidden. I didn't know she was going to call you. I thought we'd all talk together. I messed up. Mom. I should have stopped her. His words softened me, but only a little. What's going on? Michael. Between you and Clara. Between us. He hesitated, his jaw working as if he were chewing on the words before letting them out. Clara thinks you're too involved in our lives. She says you hover. That you're always trying to fix things. Like when you offered to help with Tommy's school project or when you brought over that casserole last week. I stared at him, stunned. I was trying to help. That's what mothers do. I know, he said quickly. I know you mean well. But Clara, she's independent. She wants to do things her way. And sometimes, she feels like you're judging her. Judging her. The word stung, sharp and unexpected. Michael, I've never judged her. I've tried to be supportive, to be part of your family. I know, Mom, he said, his voice breaking. But it's not just about you. It's everything. Dad told me last night. About the divorce. My breath caught. So Richard had gone through with it. Without me. The betrayal cut deep. But I pushed it aside, focusing on Michael. What did he say? He said you two have been unhappy for a long time. That you've agreed to part ways. He made it sound so final. Michael's eyes met mine, searching. Why didn't you tell me? I swallowed hard, the weight of his question pressing against me. We wanted to tell you together. That was the plan. But then Clara, I trailed off, unwilling to lay all the blame at her feet. Though it was tempting. Michael nodded, his expression a mix of sadness and resignation. I don't want to lose you, Mom. Not to Clara. Not to this divorce. But I don't know how to fix this. I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. You don't have to fix it alone. We'll figure it out. Together. He gave me a small, uncertain smile. And for a moment, I saw the boy who'd made that chipped mug. The one who believed I could make everything right. But as we sat there, the red door behind us loomed like a barrier. And I knew this was only the beginning of the storm we'd have to weather. The drive home was a blur, Michael's words echoing in my mind. Clara thought I hovered. She felt judged. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, as I tried to make sense of it. I'd always prided myself on being there for my family, on being the one they could rely on. But now, that very instinct was pushing them away. When I got home, Richard was in the living room, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked up as I entered, his expression guarded. How'd it go with Michael? He told me about Clara, I said, dropping my purse on the couch. And about your little announcement last night. Richard's jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. You weren't there, Evelyn. I had to tell him. You could have waited. I snapped, the hurt spilling over. We agreed to do it together. But you went ahead without me, just like you always do. He set the glass down, his movements deliberate. I didn't plan it that way. Michael asked why you weren't there, and it just came out. He deserved to know. And I deserved to be part of it. I said, my voice trembling. But I guess that doesn't matter anymore. Does it? Not to you. Not to Clara. Richard stood, his hands raised in a gesture of surrender. Evelyn, this isn't about Clara. This is about us. We've been falling apart for years. And you know it. I turned away, my eyes burning. He was right. Of course. Our marriage had been unraveling for a long time. Silent dinners, separate bedrooms, conversations that never went deeper than the weather. But hearing him say it, so matter of fact, made it real in a way I wasn't ready for. I'm going to stay with my sister for a few days, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I need space. Richard didn't argue. He just nodded, his shoulders sagging. Do what you need to do. I packed a small bag and drove to my sister Margaret's house. An hour away. Margaret was 2 years younger, but she'd always been the bolder one, the one who spoke her mind without hesitation. When I arrived, she took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. Tell me everything, she said, leading me to her cozy kitchen. Over cups of chamomile tea, I poured out the story: Clara's call, Michael's confession, Richard's betrayal. Margaret listened, her eyes narrowing as I spoke. Clara sounds like she's got her own issues, Margaret said when I finished. But banning you from dinner, that's cold. And Richard going behind your back, that's just cowardice. I sighed, stirring my tea. I don't know what to do. Maggie, I feel like I'm losing everyone. You're not losing anyone, she said firmly. Michael's still your son. Tommy's still your grandson. And you're still you, Evelyn. You've got more strength than you realize. Her words were a balm, but they didn't erase the ache. That night, I lay awake in her guest room, thinking about Tommy. He was 6, all energy and curiosity, with Michael's eyes and Clara's smile. I'd always been close to him, reading him stories, taking him to the park. Had Clara's feelings about me tainted that, too? The next day, I called Michael. Can I see Tommy? I asked, my voice tentative. Just for an hour or two. I miss him. Michael hesitated, and my heart sank. Clara's not thrilled about it, he admitted. But I'll talk to her. How about tomorrow afternoon? I'll bring him to the park. Relief flooded me, mixed with a pang of guilt. I shouldn't have to beg to see my own grandson. But I thanked him and hung up, clinging to the hope that this small step could mend something. The park was alive with children's laughter when I arrived the next day. Tommy spotted me from the swings and ran over, his small arms wrapping around my waist. Grandma, he squealed. And for a moment, everything felt right. We played for hours, chasing each other through the grass, building a lopsided sandcastle in the sandbox. Michael watched from a bench, his expression unreadable. When it was time to go, Tommy clung to my hand, his eyes wide. Can you come to our house again? Grandma, I miss your cookies. I glanced at Michael, who gave a small nod. We'll see, sweetheart, I said, kissing Tommy's forehead. Soon, I hope. As they drove away, I stood in the park, the weight of the past few days settling over me. I wasn't just fighting for my place in their lives, I was fighting for myself. For the woman I'd been before the years and the hurts had worn me down. And I wasn't ready to give up. Back at Margaret's, I felt a spark of resolve. Tommy's laughter, his small hand in mine, had reminded me of what mattered. I couldn't let Clara's rejection or Richard's detachment define me. But I also knew I couldn't force my way back into their lives. I needed to understand Clara, to see the world through her eyes, if I had any hope of rebuilding our family. I called Michael the next morning. Can I talk to Clara? I asked. Just the two of us. I want to clear the air. He hesitated, then agreed to arrange it. She's not going to like it, he warned. But I'll try. 2 days later, I sat across from Clara at a small cafe downtown. She was as poised as ever, her dark hair pulled back, her green eyes guarded. At 32, she was a striking woman, But today, I saw the tension in her posture, the way her fingers gripped her coffee cup. "Thank you for meeting me," I began, my voice steady despite the nerves twisting in my stomach. "I need to understand why you didn't want me at the dinner." Clara's lips pressed into a thin line. "Evelyn, it's not personal. I needed space that night. Michael and I have been struggling, and I thought a smaller group would be easier." "Struggling?" I asked, leaning forward. "Michael didn't mention anything." She sighed, her guard slipping just a fraction. "He wouldn't. He's too proud. But things haven't been great. Work's been overwhelming for me, and Tommy's been having issues at school. I didn't want to deal with extra dynamics that night." I frowned, trying to process her words. Extra dynamics. "Clara, I'm not here to make things harder. I've always tried to support you." "I know you think that," she said, her voice sharp. "But sometimes, it feels like you're trying to take over. Like when you reorganized my kitchen last month without asking. Or when you told Tommy's teacher how to handle his reading struggles. It's too much." Her words hit like a slap, but I forced myself to listen. I remembered those moments reorganizing her kitchen because I thought it'd help. Talking to Tommy's teacher because I'd seen him struggle. I'd meant well, but I hadn't considered how it felt to her. "I didn't realize," I said quietly. "I'm sorry, Clara. I was trying to help, but I see now how it could feel overbearing." She blinked, surprised by my apology. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she softened, just a little. "I appreciate that. I know you love Tommy and Michael, but I need to feel like I'm in control of my own family." "I understand," I said, and I meant it. "Can we start over? I want to be part of your lives, but I'll respect your boundaries." Clara nodded slowly. "I'd like that, but it'll take time." We parted with a tentative truce, and I drove back to Margaret's feeling lighter, though not entirely unburdened. Clara's honesty had given me clarity, but it also revealed how fragile our family was. And there was still Richard to deal with. When I returned home a few days later, Richard was waiting. He looked older, his face lined with regret. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we'd shared countless meals over the years. "I'm sorry about the dinner," he began. "I shouldn't have told Michael without you." I nodded, my throat tight. It hurt, Richard. But it's not just that. It's everything. We've been living like strangers for years. He looked down at his hands, his fingers tracing the grain of the table. "I know. And I don't know how to fix it. Maybe we can't." His words hung between us, heavy with truth. We'd loved each other once, fiercely, but time had worn that love thin. "Maybe we don't fix it," I said softly. "Maybe we just let go." Richard's eyes met mine, and for the first time in years, I saw vulnerability there. "I don't want to lose you, Evelyn. Not completely." "You won't," I said, though I wasn't sure how true that was. "We'll always be family. For Michael and Tommy. But we need to be honest with them. With ourselves." He nodded, and we sat in silence, the weight of our decision settling around us. It wasn't the ending I'd imagined when we married all those years ago, but it was the one we'd arrived at. And somehow, that was enough for now. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of rebuilding. Clara and I started small text messages about Tommy's school events, a shared coffee here and there. She was still guarded, But I could see her trying, and I was learning to step back, to let her lead. Michael, caught between us, seemed relieved at the progress, though I could tell he was still grappling with the news of the divorce. Richard and I began the process of untangling our lives. We met with a lawyer, divided assets, and discussed how to tell our friends and extended family. It was painful, but there was a strange relief in the honesty of it all. We were no longer pretending, no longer hiding behind forced smiles and empty routines. One evening, Clara invited me to their house, not for a grand family dinner, but for something simpler, pizza night with Tommy. I arrived with a batch of homemade cookies, careful not to overstep. Tommy greeted me with a hug, his face smeared with tomato sauce, and I laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in months. Clara and I worked side by side in the kitchen, cleaning up while Michael played with Tommy in the living room. It was a small moment, but it felt like a victory. "Thank you," I said as we stacked plates in the dishwasher, "for letting me be here." She smiled, a real smile this time. "Tommy loves you. And I'm trying. Evelyn. I really am." "I know," I said, and I meant it. "I'm trying, too." As the night wound down, Michael pulled me aside. "Mom, I'm proud of you," he said, his voice quiet. "This hasn't been easy, but you're handling it with grace." I blinked back tears, touched by his words. "I'm just doing my best, sweetheart." He hugged me, and for a moment, I was back in that thunderstorm, holding his hand, promising everything would be okay. Maybe it wasn't okay yet, but we were getting there. Richard and I finalized the divorce a month later. It was a quiet affair, just signatures and a few words exchanged in a sterile office. Afterward, we went for coffee, an odd but fitting end to our shared story. "You'll always be part of my life," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I hope you know that." "I do," I replied, and I found I meant it. We'd hurt each other, but we'd also built something beautiful, a family, a history. That didn't vanish, even if our marriage did. I moved into a small apartment closer to Michael's house, a fresh start that felt both terrifying and liberating. Margaret helped me decorate, filling the space with color and warmth. "This is your time, Evelyn," she said, hanging a painting of a sunflower field. "You get to decide who you are now." Her words stayed with me as I settled into my new life. I joined a book club, started volunteering at Tommy's school, and even took up painting, something I'd always wanted to try. Each step felt like a reclamation, a way of rediscovering the woman I'd been before the years of compromise and sacrifice. One afternoon, Clara called, her voice hesitant. "Evelyn, we're having a family barbecue next weekend. Nothing fancy, just us and a few friends. Would you come?" I paused, the invitation warming me. "I'd love to," I said. "Thank you, Clara." As I hung up, I looked around my apartment, at the life I was building. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hope, a quiet, steady flame that promised better days ahead. The barbecue was a small affair, held in Michael and Clara's backyard. The air smelled of grilled burgers and blooming lilacs, and laughter floated from the children playing tag in the grass. I stood by the picnic table, a glass of lemonade in hand, watching Tommy chase his friends, his giggles a melody that soothed my soul. Clara approached, a plate of sliced watermelon in her hands. "I'm glad you came," she said, setting the plate down. Tommy's been talking about you all week. I smiled, warmed by her words. He's a special boy. You and Michael are doing a wonderful job. She blushed, a rare moment of vulnerability. It's not always easy, but having you around, it helps. More than I realized. Her admission caught me off guard, and I felt a lump in my throat. That means a lot. Clara, I want to be here, in whatever way works for you. We stood there, side by side, watching the scene unfold. Michael was at the grill, flipping burgers, his laughter mingling with the chatter of their friends. Richard was there, too, standing a little apart, but he caught my eye and gave a small nod. We were no longer husband and wife, but we were still connected, bound by our shared past and our love for our son. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Tommy ran over, tugging at my hand. Grandma, come play with us. I laughed, letting him pull me into the game. My knees protested, but my heart soared. This was what I'd been fighting for, not just a seat at the table, but a place in their lives, messy and imperfect as they were. Later, as the guests began to leave, Michael found me by the fire pit, where I was roasting a marshmallow for Tommy. You okay, Mom? He asked, his voice soft. Better than okay, I said, smiling. I'm home. He hugged me, and I felt the years melt away, the pain and the distance fading in the warmth of that moment. Clara joined us, her arm around Michael, and for the first time, I saw us as a family, not perfect, not without scars, but whole in our own way. That night, as I drove back to my apartment, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain of Clara's rejection, the heartbreak of the divorce, the slow, tentative steps toward reconciliation all shaped me, carved out a new version of myself. I wasn't the same Evelyn who'd sat alone that night, staring at an empty table. I was stronger, wiser, and maybe even a little braver. I pulled into my parking spot and looked up at the stars, their light steady and unwavering. Life wasn't what I'd planned, but it was still beautiful, still worth fighting for. And as I stepped into my apartment, the door closing softly behind me, I knew I was ready for whatever came next, a new chapter, written on my own terms.